Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Silver Lining Episode 3. I am your host, Miss South Florida Fair 2020, Juliette Valle. And today I have a very special guest. I met this girl through the Miss Florida organization. She is an absolute star, an absolute talent, and just a class act all around. And I would love to welcome you all to meet Miss Olivia Butler. Or Olivia Jacoby, rather. Are we
it's
just
all right. It takes getting used to. Olivia Butler, Olivia Jacoby. I answer to both.
So I was actually just talking to Olivia about all her accomplishments, and she actually was a former Miss Tampa. And what was your other title that you held?
I was Miss Pasco County the year before I was Miss Tampa.
You actually placed second runner-up at Miss Florida 2017, which is a huge accomplishment. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, how did you get involved with the Miss America organization?
So this is always a very funny story. I competed because of a dare from a sorority sister in a local pageant near my college. It was Miss Thomasville. It's actually the oldest title within the Miss North Carolina organization. I didn't place. I wore a wedding gown that I found from Goodwill and my mother's bathing suit. I think I won Miss Congeniality, which had a fantastic scholarship. I think I won like $500. But I kind of, took the plunge, competed in my first pageant, and the bug bit, I guess. At that point, I was addicted. I loved the process of competing, preparing for competition, and decided to return to my home state and represent local areas where I was from originally.
That's so awesome. And you came so far from you said not even placing in your first pageant, you becoming second runner-up.
It was laughable. It really was. It was bad.
And did you always sing opera as your talent?
I sang, so my first pageant, I sang a contemporary piece. And then I studied, music was my minor in school. So I got into the classical part because I was studying it, and it was a great way for me to practice performing that kind of thing. So I started with contemporary and then ended up competing with classical music and pageant.
And I want to get more into how you got into opera, but can I just say, I remember your performance of Nessun Dorma at Miss Florida 2019. Yeah. I cried. I was in awe, and I had already known you from competing as a teen, and you had always been so nice to me. So I did know you, and I was rooting for you the whole time. But I just thought you were absolutely amazing, and I don't really think I ever got the chance to tell you in person, but you were fabulous.
Thank you.
So that's so awesome. And you said the Miss America organization has meant so much to you and how the bug bit you. I mean, I get it. The first time I competed in a pageant, I did not think I'd win. And then, 4 years later, I'm still in it. So it's the best thing that could have ever happened. And it teaches you a lot of skills as well, a lot of public speaking skills. And I'm sure you learned so many skills through that as well.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
So your platform, a requirement for being a Miss Florida title holder is to have a platform, and your platform is called Girls Empowered Mentally for Success. Could you tell me a little bit about that and why it is your platform and how you got started with it?
Yeah, so I chose Girls Empowered Mentally for Success just because I really agreed with the whole concept of the organization, which is basically meeting women with where they're at and basically how society functions and how we as women function within that society. So, talking about how it's important as a woman because the expectations are higher for us. The world is harder on us to expect excellence from ourselves. And that's something that I really believe in, just because I think that a lot of the large problem with youth now is a lack of self-awareness. We always want to think of the world the way that we think it exists, but we don't really accept the world that actually exists. So I loved Crystal Bale. She's the director of the program. I loved how she did a lot of female empowerment, but a lot of esteem building within the world and creating basically, a way for young girls to cope with the pressures that we deal with and accepting the pressures, knowing that they're coming and teaching them how to cope with them.
And I think that's so amazing that that's your platform because you're clearly very passionate about it, and it's clearly something you're still involved with even after your, pageant career. But you were a representative for the Miss America organization, which is all about empowering women. So your platform was so appropriate for that. And I'm sure so many people looked up to you during your time. So to have a platform that coincides with that is really, really nice. And
yeah, it was.
So now I want to get into opera. I want to know how you got started in opera and how you realized you had that great big talent, because for your first pageant, you said you did a contemporary piece. So it's not like
Mm-hmm.
opera was something you did all the time, or it wasn't like your
Mm-hmm.
shtick, I guess, for lack of a better word. So how did you realize that you had such a talent for it? Because honestly, you could be a professional opera singer with your voice.
Thank you so much. I kind of fell into opera by accident. When I was in middle school, I went to the Phantom of the Opera, which is really not classical opera in the intensity that you and I would think of it,
Mm-hmm.
but it served as like a stepping stone for me to get into real tried and true opera. And I think what I loved about opera is opera singers are athletes. I always tell people in classical music, it's considered cheating if you sing with a microphone.
Mm-hmm.
And one of, I would say, the highlights of my college career is I got to perform a whole concert with my university orchestra. And the challenge for me was having to project over 350 people playing loud instruments with no microphone. So it challenged me physically. I had to do a lot of cardio to get my body ready for that
Mm-hmm.
performance. And the other part I love about opera is there's a historical component. A lot of these operas are basically political commentary. So you
Mm-hmm.
had to know a lot about history. I'm sure you've experienced this as well, Juliette, but the difference between spoken French and sung French,
Yes.
spoken Italian. So there was a linguistic component to it that I really enjoyed. And I would just say overall that it was very multidisciplinary. And that's what really, really attracted me to opera. Is it attracted me, physically, emotionally, mentally. That was another thing that I loved to study was the life of the composers. A lot of them dealt with a lot of mental health issues, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of family issues, and those human problems were injected into their music.
I love that you actually brought that up. I wasn't expecting that at all, but that is wonderful that you said that. I mean, you clearly like to research the history behind it, the history of the
Mm-hmm.
composer and what they were going through at that time. So therefore, it translates into you understanding a better meaning of the song, and that
Mm-hmm.
transcends into your performance. So clearly, you're very passionate about opera as well. And I also want to know, for your talent at Miss Florida
Mm-hmm.
2017, Nessa Dorma is traditionally a song sung by a male. Pavarotti
Yeah.
made it famous. I want to know why you chose that song. It doesn't even have to be related to that, but I thought that was a really cool spin on it, like a woman modernizing the song by singing it herself.
Yeah. I think for me, obviously the practical part of it is in pageants, we have a very limited amount of time to really make an impression on the judges. So, I wanted to come out and I wanted to let them know, look, I've dedicated my life to this craft. I've rehearsed it, I've studied it, and I want you to know that I am, professional in my level of performance. So that was number one.
Mm-hmm.
For me, Nessun Dorma, the whole storyline in the opera surrounds victory. And one of the very big challenges that I dealt with in dealing with pageants was my body size.
Mm-hmm.
I got criticized constantly about, well, you don't have a bikini ready body. You just don't have the body type they like. You're never going to be successful in this. You're never going to place. They're never going to let you win. I heard that all the time. And, less than about winning the pageant, I wanted to make a statement that you don't have to be a zero to win a pageant. You don't have to be a zero to place, at a high level state in the Miss America organization. And that was really what the song was to me, was letting myself know. Because you can imagine when you have all of those inner voices in your mind, you start to think, well, maybe they're right,
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like it was a victory for me to be able to stand on that stage, win talent, and let girls know you can look like me and you can win too.
I do agree with you on that. And I find it disheartening almost though, because the thing is like when I met you in person, you're
Mm-hmm.
very conventionally beautiful. You are a size that I think most people would be like, wow, she's in very good shape. I think pageants are known for setting a standard that's a little bit more unattainable for the average female.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you on that. And, people might look at you and all your pictures and be like, oh, she's so beautiful. She's Miss Tampa. She's Miss Pasco County. But what they don't realize is that every pageant girl, myself included, and I'm sure many winners themselves struggle with insecurity. It's not like just because you win a title, that means that all your insecurities go away. And I like how your platform is empowering other females, but you also empowered yourself. And I'm sure it was incredibly emotional for you to have that message you were singing to yourself almost during the competition. It was almost like you were talking to yourself in that moment. But I mean, I do agree there's some unrealistic standards, and now that's changing. And I wanted to ask you about that. But before I segue into that, I just wanted to say that I do think that anyone who would ever criticize you is absolutely wrong, because I met you and you're absolutely beautiful. And I think in shape that a lot of women would want to attain.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And I think if anything, what I loved about my time in pageants that I think has served me well, like even as a business owner and doing what I'm doing, is I am prepared for the world and how it functions. And I think what one of the best skills that any pageant girl has is, because we were constantly being challenged to be the best version of ourselves, it instills in us this need to not be okay being average. And I think that's really important. And that's not about, well, we're women, we feel an added pressure to feel this way. And is there a component of that? Sure. But I think for any person, whether it's, female or male, you need to have inside of you a want to be better. And when that goes away, that's concerning at that point. And that's what I loved about my time. I'm very good with constructive criticism, which I think is essential in the world that we live in. And I'm very self-aware. So I keep using that term, but I think that's something that a lot of people lack. And knowing how to, having a healthy awareness of what your strengths and weaknesses are very, very important in life.
Yes, and I love that you bring that up, because the point of my show is to invite inspiring people, but it's even better when these inspiring figures can offer life lessons or pieces of wisdom and advice. And the prospect of having tenacity and grit is so, so important, especially when dealing with the pageant industry or any industry. I mean, like you said, now you're a business owner, you have trained in a competitive field of opera and music in general, and you competed on the Miss Florida stage. So it's obvious that you have had adversity in your life, but you've overcome that and you place so highly. So I think to say that you came from the place where you started from not even placing and back in North Carolina to almost winning the Miss Florida pageant is pretty incredible. And I think that's inspiring for anybody to be able to look at your strengths and look at your weaknesses and say, this is what I'm good at and this is what I'm not so good at, and have that need to make yourself better. I think that's almost everything, especially when being a performer or a business owner or a pageant girl. I think you relate to any three of those.
100%.
So now, actually, I think it was 2018. So I think a year after you exited the pageant, Miss America decided to change everything and become Miss America 2.0. And they took out swimsuit and they changed things from here and there. I don't want to say everything because it's just a lot of changes and I don't want to get anything inaccurate. But what were your opinions on the change? Were you upset that it happened right after you had left, or were you happy it was just happening, or what were your thoughts on that?
So I initially was very supportive of them getting rid of swimsuit. I still am. My thing was, I felt like it was taken a little bit too far. Personally, I have always admired how the Miss Universe program does swimsuit, where it's a lot more, it's still showing off the physique, being in shape, but it's done a little bit more tasteful, if that makes sense, a little bit more sporty, a little bit more of a self-expression, that contestant. So I think, I think that getting rid of swimsuit was a good move. But I think that it could have been supplemented by something different, or, without having to take swimsuit out in its entirety, just doing something a little bit more modest, because from my personal experience, I mean, those bikinis are tiny,
Very, almost like walking in almost nothing on stage. And that's
and
life,
for me,
very hard.
Yeah. And I just don't think we don't need that now. And especially, they don't really, I think a lot of the other part that people don't realize is it's not like they give you a choice in swimsuit, like this is what you're wearing. You're going to wear this, end of story. And I just think that there's different ways to approach a swimsuit competition than basically wearing a bra and panties on stage.
So you are acknowledging the fact that there are some purposes to it that do, serve us well, that it's, showcasing a level of health and fitness that is really nice. But you also see that it's 2020, it's kind of time for things to change. And so you do agree with the change. You just wish it had been executed a little less drastically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
But overall, you would say, even though you weren't in Miss America 2.0, that you thought the organization positively impacted you, and you did. And I mean, you rocked it in swimsuit. I mean, I thought you were awesome. And, there's all sorts of different body types on the Miss Florida stage. And although all of you were fit, I'm not going to lie and say that, any of the girls I saw that night weren't fit, because that just wouldn't be the truth. But there's all sorts of different bodies on display. And I found that to be quite inspiring, to see a girl like, oh, hey, she looks a little bit more like me, or that girl looks like my friend. Maybe my friend could compete, because it just shows, like you said earlier, hey, you could look like me and be up there too. And yes. I think that's a really positive message for young women.
Mm-hmm.
So after that pageant, you exited, and then you got engaged, and now you're married. Yes. So that's so wonderful. Congratulations. I know you got married a while ago, but the engagement happened. I'm not sure how quickly it happened right after, but I do remember it. Happening. When did you get engaged?
So I got engaged during my time as Miss Tampa. I had to keep my engagement a secret. Because, as you know, so the Miss America program is very big on, people think it's like, oh, you have to be a bachelor or a bachelorette rather and be a contestant, and it's not. They just don't want anything that is distracting you from your year of service. Right. Because, the title is paying you to do a job, and they want you to be focused. So my fiance, as well as my board of directors, and myself at the time, made a commitment to not announce my engagement publicly until my year of service was over with as Miss Tampa. So that was fun. I really got to relive it twice. But yeah, I got engaged. I got married. I went off to medical school, decided that medical school was not for me, and now I'm here. So I had quite the journey following my pageant days.
And so when you got engaged during this, which I think is so cute, but I would find that personally super hard to not tell everybody in the world that I'm engaged. So lots of willpower. Kudos to you. But did you know that would be your last year competing pretty much for Miss Florida, since you knew you wanted to get married?
I did. I felt like I had, second runner-up was fulfilling enough for me.
Yeah.
I had a great year. I think I won an interview, and I won overall talent, and that, I felt.
And those are the two hardest categories.
Yeah, well, I felt fulfilled. Like, I felt like, okay, you know what, if I'm going to go out, I'm going out with a bang. I pushed myself and really done the best that, I could offer. And I think that's what the true crown is asking yourself, did I give my all? And I did. So I felt at peace transitioning into the next phase of my life. And, at the time I wanted to get into graduate school and get going. So, it wasn't like it was a planned, I knew that was going to be my last year.
So I remember right after, because I did keep up with you a lot. I always like to stalk like the big girls that I really admired. So you're talking to a stalker. So
I'm flattered you want to stalk.
I'm really happy I admitted that to you on camera. That's super exciting. But anyway, yes, I did keep up with you quite a bit. And I noticed that you went to a prestigious medical school. And I remember you talking about how you wanted to pursue that. What made you change your mind? And I'm sure that decision was hard to make, because I know people that have made it. I'm in college right now, and a girl I was very close with was actually pursuing pre-med and decided to move to something entirely different, but that wasn't easy. What made you decide to change?
So it was kind of a series of things. I mean, we could do a whole Zoom call just on that choice. But I did not test very well. And now medical schools are very MCAT oriented. So I was waitlisted at a series of programs, and I went to an international school of medicine and was just realizing that, I had just gotten married. My brand new husband was living in the United States. I was living in Barbados at the time.
Oh, wow.
I think it was, a multitude of things. I didn't feel like I was going to be able to pursue the specialty that I wanted to study. So that was part of it. I wanted to be with my spouse. And I think, that sense of, I think it was perfect that I decided to make that choice and kind of tee it up with having been in pageants, because going back to that whole idea of self-awareness, you know, I went down to, you know, I was finally a medical student. I had finally achieved what I wanted to, and it just didn't feel natural. I mean, I don't know how to explain the feeling, but I just didn't. I had climbed the mountain and I was at the top, and it wasn't what I thought it was, if that makes sense.
Right, because you're definitely very smart. You went to Wake Forest University and studied biology and marketing. I actually have a list of everything I wrote about her here, and I just didn't read it at the beginning because I was nervous. But she has a lot of accomplishments. But so you're clearly very smart. It's not a measure of that. It just didn't feel right to you. It didn't feel like you were meant to be there.
Yeah, it didn't feel like I was using my gifts the way that, you know, I'm a person of faith, that God wanted me to use my gifts. You know, and I think that life, you know, so to kind of like back up a little bit, my father was diagnosed with very early stages of cancer right before my last time at Miss Florida. And I think whenever you deal with an illness like that, it kind of packs a punch as far as getting a reality check.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went down there and was starting to feel feelings like I was being pulled in a different direction, you know, it took a lot of courage to walk away from something that I had worked for since I was probably 9 or 10 years old. There's still parts of me that love medicine and that miss it, but I can truly say that I live doing what I love. And I think there's a lot of people in this world that don't get to say that. So I am happy that I made the decision that I did.
Yes, and my mom likes to say, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life.
It's true.
You know? So I admire that courage so much. And I think people don't recognize that if you have to walk away from something, that takes a lot of guts. That's not, I'm sure that was a very tough decision for you to make. Obviously, you wrestled with it. But ultimately, now you're at a place in your life where you're truly happy. And perhaps if you had stayed in the profession you were pursuing back then, you wouldn't have put your all into it. And knowing you and hearing how you've talked about yourself and about your journey, you're someone that's very determined and who likes to give her all in everything you do. So I can see why you made the choice to really pursue something that you really love rather than be stuck in a profession that you probably weren't going to be as invested in.
Yes.
And now you own a bridal store, which is so cool.
I do.
So I want you to dress me up for my wedding. So where is your bridal store? Is it in Lakeland?
It is in Lakeland, Florida. Yes.
Which is where the Miss Florida.
Home of the Miss Florida pageant.
So I'm sure you see Miss Florida sometimes, or you see things about the Miss Florida pageant. But that's so awesome. So can you tell me how you got into that?
So I am Cuban American, and my grandmother was a dressmaker for a living. I have always been, like, in high school, I was voted best dressed. In my sorority, I was voted best dressed. I've always had a passion, you know, less for like clothing and fashion and more for fit and garments and fabric. And it's just something that's always come very naturally to me. And, you know, when I came back from medical school, I kind of grappled with, okay, what's my next move going to be? What am I going to do? And my husband actually mentioned, you know, Olivia, you've always loved weddings and you have an incredible talent, you know, with design and clothing. Why don't you open up a bridal shop? And then when I opened up the store, I got the opportunity to get with a manufacturer and create my own gowns. So I have had a lot of people do that. Wow. And I would say that's probably like where my true passion lies. I love taking a girl who's not sure of what look she's going for, what she wants to look like on the most special day of her life, getting a pencil and pen and drawing it out and having it be created in person. There's no greater joy than that to me.
That's so cool. That's like a dream, I think, for every girl. Of course, it requires special talent.
Oh, it's a lot of work, but yeah.
No, I was going to say, I have no talent for that. I have absolutely no talent for drawing and sketching, but I think that's just so cool. And you also contribute to giving girls the best day of their lives. And the dress, dare I say it's the most important thing? Maybe not. Well, I guess getting someone to marry you. That's the first step.
I always tell people, in fact, tonight, my husband and I are doing a Zoom call on the first year of marriage, triumphs and challenges that we encountered. And picking your spouse is the single most important decision that you will make in your lifetime. So I would say that dating and marriages are also a passion of mine. And I like to tell, girls, when you buy from me, it's not just a transactional, here's your dress, go get married, send me pictures when you're done. I really try to nurture and foster that bride, get her ready for not just her wedding day and what she's wearing, but her mindset. So, when I was coming up with the brand of the store, what I wanted to represent, I had the motto of where the girl comes before the gown, just because I think it's important to, in something like this, think of it less as a transaction and more of a relationship you're developing with your client.
I think that's honestly so great that it's more to you than just getting the dress out there and being like, hey, make sure you tag me in your post, but also just really leveling with them, because you recently just got married. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's not long ago. So you've been through this process, and obviously you and your husband seem so happy, and congratulations. And you clearly understand your value and what it means to be in a healthy relationship. And you're offering that advice to your clients, which is so great. So when I get my wedding dress from you, make sure you give me some advice. I'll need it. Probably.
I will.
But I don't think that will be for a while, but we'll see.
All right. That's good. Work on yourself. That's important.
But I think that's so cool that you designed them too. You did tell me that when I asked you yesterday, but I at first just thought you owned a store. But you also designed them, which is crazy. And that's really, really cool. I am really curious to know how long it takes you to well, I guess it depends on the intricacy of the piece. But how long, on average, does it take you to design a wedding dress?
So it just kind of, like you said, it depends on the piece. I do a lot of mother of the bride gowns, ironically enough. And it usually from drawing, from concept to production to delivery, 6 to 9 months, depending on, what they're wanting. It's so much fun. It's so much work, but I love it just because I love to supervise, every part of the process. And, you're protective of your reputation and of your aesthetic. And I always tell a bride that if people don't gasp when they see you or see your mother, then I didn't do my job. So I really pour my heart out into every Olivia Marie creation. Let's put it that way.
I think that's so cool. You are living the dream, honestly.
Oh,
your store, from what I've seen, you walking around, looks beautiful. It looks like a white, gorgeous palace.
It's very girly. It's very girly.
I like that. Clearly, I'm a big girly girl, but I'm curious, when your husband said, which I also love that your husband was the one that was like, you have this talent, and let's get this started, because most guys wouldn't be like, let's get a dress store up and running, but he was so supportive of you, which I think is so cute. But how long from that initial idea did it take to get the store up and running?
So let's see, I came back from graduate school in February of last year.
Okay.
And I opened my store in November the same year. So I did not take that much time. I personally don't do well being idle. So I needed something to propel myself into.
I can tell.
I had done so much schooling and I had so many degrees and I just really wanted to get started with my career. So I would say that I was a little eager to get going. But no, he was extremely supportive. And that's the other thing that I always tell young women, when you're looking for a spouse, find a guy that wants a co-star and not just a supporting actress. He wanted somebody that was his equal. We challenge each other intellectually and emotionally. And I think that's one of my favorite components of being married. And he, Mr. Southern Swan, as he's called, was extremely supportive throughout and still is.
I love that. And I also want you to talk a little bit about, you mentioned that you're doing a Zoom tonight. If you'd like to promote that, I'm going to promote it now, I'm guessing, because I'm going to be posting this later. But if you do it in the future, I would hope so. I think that's awesome because, you're obviously very faithful. You are a woman of God, and you also are in a very healthy, loving relationship. And I feel like we don't really see that as often as at least I'd like to, in pop culture and stuff like that. Most of it's celebrity couples, but we never really get a couple that's down to earth, sitting down and talking and being like, marriage isn't always perfect. It's not always roses and peaches. You guys are a great couple, and he obviously supports you, but you said you mentioned that there's struggles and there's triumphs in the first year of marriage. And I think that's a really great, way to level with people and talk to people, because like I said before, it's not really talked about enough. And I think that's a really refreshing look. I'm only 18 and I have no plans of getting married as of right now, but I think it would be good advice for someone like me to be like, this is what I'm looking for, and maybe this is what I should stay away from.
Exactly. And I think the key is we have this fallacy in our country that marriage preparation starts when you're getting married, and it's not. It starts when you're your age, when you're single, you're, in this process of personal growth, of challenging yourself. You are establishing patterns right now that are going to solidify themselves when you get married. And you are not only, solidifying habits yourself, but you are already determining in your dating life what you want in a spouse and what you don't.
Right.
So I think you're right. I think the other component too is a lot of branding now and having a business is creating solutions for your clients. That's how you build loyalty in a customer. And I always want my store to be a safe place and a safe haven for brides. And my relationship, like you said, I think so much now is centered around social media. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about tonight. You struggle in not comparing your marriage to your friend's marriage.
Yeah.
And knowing that it's not always perfect, and it is the most challenging thing that you will do, but it's also the most rewarding. My relationship has had challenges, but when you have faith in your creator, and that's where your love is founded, and that, and in friendship and profound respect, you're going to survive. So we're going to delve into all of that tonight. I was so touched because I usually give girls opportunities to submit questions before we talk. And some of the questions were very moving, and, my husband's a little nervous, but, I told him that this is a great way to give back and to make his debut on social media.
I would love to watch it, and I'm actually probably going to, because
it's at 5:00 tonight.
Yes, but I hope you do more stuff like that in the future. Because you could honestly devote call after Zoom call after Zoom call to any issue. I'm sure you'll get so many questions, but he shouldn't be nervous. I'm sure everyone will love it, and you're very candid and very honest, so I know that whatever you say, it's going to be 100% truth, but something that we can all relate to. And like I said before, you're a beauty queen. You have an amazing store. You from my perspective, it looks like you're living a pretty amazing, awesome life, and you are. But you're also able to be like, this is what's really going on, and here's what we have to deal with that isn't always so perfect. So that's refreshing, because it makes people like me able to relate. It's not like you're just this amazing, successful businesswoman anymore that can do no wrong. You are also, and you're so young. You're so young. We're really not that far apart in age when you think about it, and you are only in your first year of marriage, but you've learned so much. So I appreciate that you are candidly speaking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think more young couples need that, because it's okay to not be perfect. I am not perfect. My store is not perfect. There are days and weeks where you think to yourself, gosh, am I going to be able to pay my rent this week? Am I going to be able to pay my electricity? You can imagine with the pandemic going on, there were a lot of business owners that had that internal dialogue. So I think it's healthy to admit that we don't all have it together, and that social media only represents that perfect 5% of our life,
And, yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think even when you were a Miss Florida title holder, you always had that outlook, because I don't know if you remember, which is totally fine. But I think
hey, Juliette, give me 1 second, okay?
Sure.
I am on a Zoom call.
So I just paused the recording because Olivia actually just had a customer come in to pick up a dress. She's still hustling. Icon. Absolutely iconic. She's on a Zoom.
Customers always come first.
Of course, no. Of course. She's on a Zoom call right now being interviewed. She has another Zoom call tonight, and she has customers coming in still. So obviously she's very busy, and there's proof of it directly recorded on this Zoom call, everybody. You are seeing everything happen live. But
so flattered.
I overall just think that you are very inspiring, and I think even when you were a pageant girl, you were still that candid and still able to say, not everything is all perfect all the time. And I remember what I was going to say now. When we were at that that sleepover from Miss Florida. How many years ago will it be? Will it be 3 years ago? That's so crazy.
I think
Uh,
so.
and I was a teen, and I remember coming up to you and talking to you, and you were so nice to me and so gracious. But you also were very real, and you were like, "It's not easy being a miss," because I was already asking you at that point, because my dream was to be a miss. I already felt. I remember you said to me, "You look like a miss. You have a miss talent. Where you'll belong is in miss." And I realized that day. And I told my mom that, oh, this like beautiful girl, like, and she knew who you were, came up to me and said this, and it made us feel really inspired, because I felt like someone gets me, someone understands why I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. But, you know, you were so down to earth with me, and I'll never forget that. I'll never forget how nice you were.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And I hope you always, feel like you can reach out to me regardless of time or any of those things. I'm always here to help in any way that I can.
I so appreciate that. I'm sorry I coughed.
No, you're fine.
But anyway, thank you so much. My last question is, my show is called The Silver Lining. And at the end, I always ask what the silver lining of a situation is. What do you think your silver lining was throughout your time being in the Miss America organization? What did you learn, and what did you take away from that experience?
I think my silver lining is just the human spirit, like what we're capable of. I learned so much about myself, what I am really, really good at and what I'm not really good at. And I don't think, had I not competed in the Miss America program, I don't know that I would be sitting in this big store right now. It gave me a huge sense of purpose and confidence to not limit myself and to challenge myself and to live life with purpose, which is what I hope my legacy is in life. And I am extremely grateful to the Miss America Scholarship Program for what it did. And I can really say that it has been fundamental in shaping me as a woman in the modern world today.
Well, yes, I'm sorry I coughed there, but
No,
I was
you're fine.
trying to say what an impact you made on me, and I'm sure you did that for so many other girls, and I'll never forget your time competing in the Miss America organization. But clearly you are so successful, and Miss Florida will always be a part of you, not only because it made such an impact on you, but because you live in Lakeland. So
yes, this is true.
But
always here.
I can't wait to come visit your store. I'm so excited. Whenever I'm in Lakeland next, we don't really know when that's going to be. But I will definitely come visit you. You are absolute joy to talk to. I am so appreciative of you taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to me today. And if you could just, before we go, say your social medias and, so people can keep up with you, just so I can put them down below, that'd be great.
Sure. So my bridal shop has a Facebook page. It's the Southern Swan.
I love that, because Lakeland's full of swans, for those of you who don't know.
It is. Yeah. And the other cool tidbit about swans that I did not know about until actually I had picked the name was they mate for life. So when one partner passes, they pass 6 to 9 months afterwards. So it's slightly morbid, but still think that was a great, name for a bridal shop beyond it being.
There you go.
Yeah, it is a fun fact.
She's teaching us all.
Yeah. So, and then my Instagram account, I believe, is Southern Swan Bridal, which you're welcome to follow to keep up with the store.
I want to look at it right now.
So many things happening in the store. So
I'm just so jealous that you, I know it's hard work, but I'm just so, I think it's so cool that you get to be around pretty dresses all day. I'm jealous, but I will definitely. Oh, wow, you have a lot of followers too.
Oh, I do? I don't really know. People now have 30,000 and
you have thousands of followers. I think you have a lot of followers.
Yeah, okay, well that's good. That's flattering.
Grace
if you're
Kelly,
18,
I don't know
19.
I don't know if anyone can see this, but this is Grace Kelly's wedding dress that you posted, and that's my dream dress. So
that was mine too. She was my muse when I got married.
I know I have to come to you, but even if I'm not getting married, I'll just come to you for some advice.
You will, but it's all about finding the right one. It's always better to be alone than ill-accompanied. Always.
Oh, don't worry, guys. So whoever I am, eventually think is going to be my husband, he's going through Olivia first.
Right? Yes. I will have to give him a seal of approval.
Of course. Well, Olivia, thank you so, so much. You are so amazing, and I look forward to talking to you in the future. And everyone check her out, because she might be doing more Zooms in the future and more inspiring talks. So thank you so much, Olivia.
All right. See you, Juliette.
Bye.
Bye.